Meal prep and grocery shopping, two things that sound simple in theory but can feel overwhelming in practice. Whether you're trying to save time, eat healthier, or stick to a budget, these are essential skills that can completely transform how you approach your nutrition. So, today we're diving into meal prep strategies, how to navigate the grocery store like a pro. This is all about simplifying the process so it works for you, not against you. But before we do, you just got back from quite a big trip. Tell us about it, where you were, what's been going on.
Yeah, so my daughters, I've mentioned a few times, they are big into the dancing world, and both teams were invited to nationals this past week in Orlando, and they've been doing this for years. So it's kind of like a tradition now. Every February, we're down in Orlando doing our dance thing, and we had a fantastic trip. The girls just absolutely crushed it. They looked amazing. It's impressive, one, just watching them, but also knowing like how much hard work they put into everything, and just watching them do everything that they do on stage like flawlessly and with big smiles and excitement and energy, and it's amazing. And it's the best teams in the nation, so it's a lot of fun. There's just so much competition, and the girls have a great experience just overall, and it's so much fun. So we had a blast. We loved it. Another successful year, and yeah, we're looking forward to next year already.
Yeah, it was super cool seeing the updates and seeing the performances. I was impressed with how everyone was so in sync and just how intense it was, and it was just not what I was expecting. So it was super cool to see.
It's amazing, and I mean, yeah, I have to remind myself that these are, so my youngest is in middle school, so they're, 12, 13-year old, and then my daughter's in high school, and I mean, these girls are, I mean, it is amazing how spot on they are, and they have to memorize all these moves and dance, and each one has their own individual style, and I mean, and they change things like often, like they don't just like start and just do. I mean, they make changes throughout the year, and I'm always amazed. Like I can't dance myself, so there's no way I can do any of this stuff. So just that simply for me is amazing. But then just knowing how much they have to learn and how much they just get on stage and they knock it out, and I'm like, how do you guys do that? And they're like, we just do. So it's kind of like it's phenomenal. It's so much fun to watch, and we're always so proud of our girls. So impressed by their hard work and everything they put out on stage. So
What was
it's a fantastic trip.
yeah? What does the training look like for them on their end, especially leading up to that?
So it's a lot of dance. So it's just repetition. So they both teams perform in three different dance styles. So they have jazz, palm, and game day, which is kind of like a, I don't know. This is probably not the best way to describe it. This is my own like dance dad version, but it's kind of like cheer, hip hop, and I guess that would be the best kind of way to describe it. Cheer and hip hop all in one. And that's my favorite, just because it's loud. They're moving around, they're doing a lot of fun stuff. Um, and so yeah, they have to learn brand new dance at the beginning of the year. This starts like in the summer. Like they get together, they go on a little trip together, and they get to kind of start learning the dances, and they just all throughout the year. It's just 3 or 4 days a week, and then as you get closer, a couple months out, it's like 4 or 5 days, 6 days. Sometimes they're doing every single day for 3 or 4 hours, and it's intense. They put in a lot of work, and it shows. I mean, they're extremely hard workers, and they just get at it. It's a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, yeah, that's awesome. It was cool to see their performance too, and everything went well. And then you guys went to Disney World too, right?
Yeah, that's the other bonus. So, the coaches are like, girls, this is a business trip, and it is. And, the parents treat it like that too. We let them do their own thing. And it's really, while it's mostly for the weekend, it's all dance, type of thing. But we usually get there like a day ahead of time and the day after. And that's kind of where we just get to just go to the parks and hang out and enjoy. We love Disney World as a family anyway. So, anytime we can get there, we do that, and so we take some time to do that, and it's always fun. We don't have as much time, but we get a lot of rides in, and of course, there's fantastic food and a lot of events. But yeah, we love Disney World in general, so that's kind of always a bonus for us as well.
Hell yeah, it makes the trip worth it. A little extra free time after all the hard work that they put in.
Yeah, yeah, and they deserve it. They deserve it for sure. But tell us what's going on with you. I haven't talked to you for a few days. I want to know what's going on with you.
I know, right? We were just saying we go a week without talking to each other. We're like, what's going on? I feel something feels off here.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much going on here. Just been working. I keep trying to catch myself. I just have to remind myself, hey, the world is not going to end if I don't get to all my work. So I've been really trying to prioritize me and filling my cup, even with the super busy season of work. So I've just been finding a better balance with that. Actually ended up booking another little mini vacation too, coming up later this month to Puerto Rico. So
Oh, there we
excited
go.
for
Tell us about it.
that. Yeah, I honestly, no, don't really have much planned. I'm just gonna show up with one of my friends and they have it all sort of planned out, so that makes it easy for me. But it'll just be good to, I'll still be working and doing stuff, but it'll at least be in a new environment and just kind of have more of the experiences since I've been trying to lean into that more.
Just soak in some more sunshine, right?
Yep. And yeah, speaking of sunshine, we went through, I know last time we were talking about the cold snap here in Florida,
Yeah.
but sun is back and I feel better immediately. I was just so deprived without it, even just for a couple weeks. It's just crazy. I know everyone's probably pissed of me saying that right now, but we're back, baby.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Isn't it crazy? Just like we feel like so much better when we're out in the sunshine. When I'm inside, or there's just days where it's cold, but there's the sun's out. If I just go outside for like 10, 20 minutes and just kind of just sit there and just soak in, like it's a world of difference. My mood changes dramatically.
Yeah, I feel much better, so it's all I needed. We're good.
We're good. We're good. All right, so let's talk about meal prep and grocery store navigation, right? So a lot of times when someone hears the phrase meal prep, they think like big, gigantic, jacked up bodybuilders, right? Or someone, some fitness model, or someone that just has like a super strict diet and they don't eat anything except for what they plan out for the week, right? But in reality, meal prep is really for anyone, and it should be for everyone, right? So it's basically just setting yourself up for success, saves you a lot of time, and then it just makes it easier to stay on track with your goals, whatever goals you have, right? And I think people have this perception that because a lot of people get on their social media and they'll share it, and they're like, oh, I take like half a Sunday to meal prep all my meals. Or I'll take a couple hours here, a couple hours there, and it just sounds like a lot of time. But in reality, there's, it's just like a lot of things. You can modify it that fits your lifestyle, and there's different types of versions. You just really have to find kind of which way works best for you. And I know that we've talked about this before. You meal prep a little bit differently than I do as well. So we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah, for sure. And that theme is common for anything we do as far as training, nutrition. You got to find what works best for you. And same with the system, same with meal prep and everything. But like you said, meal prep is something that everyone needs to do to some extent, especially if you have a busy schedule or on the go a lot. That's when it's even more important. And I also think the grocery store is a foundation for all this. If you don't know what to buy or how to plan, you're setting yourself up for stress, unhealthy choices, and a lot of wasted time and money.
yeah, and I know, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, or maybe I feel like I'm weird, but a lot of people will tell me like, oh, I hate going to the grocery store, or you'll see a lot of people that, have Instacart, stuff like that. Well, they'll order. I actually enjoy going to the grocery store. I like going. I like looking at different foods and finding new foods, or just looking at different ideas, coming up with different ideas, and going through and picking out the right fruit and the different meats and stuff. So I don't know if it's just because I'm more involved with it, like my meals, and I'm thinking more intentionally, like what I want to eat and how I want to eat throughout the week, or if I am just kind of weird. But
Yeah, I
but I
think you're
do
weird.
but I do love it. I mean, I would totally do it for other people. But okay, so for most people, it's a challenge, right? So let's kind of talk about some of the challenges that people have. So a lot of times people just the idea of meal prep sounds pretty good, but they don't know where to start. All right. A lot of times people come to the grocery store and like they're not really like me. They get overwhelmed with the selection, or with where to go in the grocery store. Um, One thing we've talked about in other aspects as well is they don't have a plan. So they just kind of buy things as they walk up and down the aisle, and they either spend a lot of extra money that they didn't need to, or they buy stuff that is just not great for their body. A lot of this, and of course, the grocery stores make this easier, but they'll fall into a trap of just getting convenience foods that don't necessarily line up with their goals. And so I think, when you don't have that plan, it's easy to fall into, hey, this looks good, this sounds good, or I'm in a hurry. I just need to run and grab this real quick. And a lot of times we end up wasting the food, either like literally like we have to throw it away because we weren't going to use it, or wasting meaning like our body doesn't really use it and it can't function the way it needs to.
Yeah, like anything, we got to have a plan going in, and that's just going to make everything so much more efficient and effective. And I think a lot of people have that mindset of, oh, I don't have time to meal prep, or I'll just figure it out during the week. But that often leads to eating out more, grabbing convenient snacks, or just skipping meals altogether. And so if you don't have time, that's exactly the reason why you need to meal prep. That's why it's so important for everyone, especially when you have busy schedules and you're on the go.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things in life that sometimes we kind of look at it in a backwards way. We're like, oh, I don't have time to do this. But in reality, if we took the time to do that, it makes everything else in that week or month or whatever it may be a lot easier. It's kind of like you hear a lot of people say, oh, I just don't have the energy to work out. And it's kind of like, well, if you worked out, you would have the energy to do a lot of different things other than just working out. So, uh,
Exactly. Like you got to force the momentum, and once you take action, everything else starts to fall into place.
yeah, yeah, it's like that so the cartoon, right, where the snowball like goes down the hill and starts picking everyone up, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about mastering meal prep. All right. So, it doesn't have to be, and we don't want it to be complicated, right? And so we don't want you to have to spend an entire Sunday or an entire Saturday meal prepping. I mean, we want to make things as easy as possible and still be able to reach our goals. So I think plan, right? We talked about we want to schedule it. Pick a day, block out a couple hours, put it on the schedule, commit to the family. Hey, involve the family. That would make things go a lot quicker. One plus two, then you're teaching your family how to do this, and start small. I think a lot of times, and this is with anything in life, I think it just as humans, right? We tend to want to jump all into everything. Like we're all in 100%, we go crazy, and then we get burned out pretty quickly. So start small. So we could do things like, you don't have to plan for the entire week. Maybe it's like, hey, this week I'm going to just meal prep breakfast, or I'm going to meal prep lunches or dinners, right? And then just pick a few recipes. It could just be 2 to 3, 4 recipes that you enjoy that you can make in bulk. So again, make something that's easy and then something you're going to enjoy. So it could be like, I know one thing that's really common is a lot of people will like to make like a big batch of chili, right? And that's kind of come. And a lot of times, chili actually tastes better the next day, right? So that's a great one. Or grilled chicken or ground beef, vegetables, or overnight oats. That's a common one too that I think is great. So when there's a lot of choices, it becomes overwhelming, right? By analysis, what is it? Analysis by paralysis by analysis. I can never say that right. Where there's this, I butchered that, but there's just like it's like when you look at a menu and go to a restaurant, there's like 8,000 items on there, and you're like, I have no idea what to get. But then when you go somewhere that has like three, you're like, oh, I know exactly what I want.
Yep.
So the same thing kind of applies with like recipes and grocery shopping.
Yeah, that's such a good example too. Like make a little menu for yourself and have that plan going in for when you're shopping and when you're meal prepping to make it so much easier on yourself. I am a huge fan of stupid, simple recipes. Like as simply as humanly possible. That is what I do. It takes me an hour and a half max to prep all of my meals for the week, sometimes less. But you can find simple recipes that are still tasty. I wanted to go over a few of my favorite ones that I've used over the years. One is going to be pizza. I know that doesn't seem healthy, doesn't seem like a meal prep type of thing, and you're not necessarily prepping the whole pizza, but you can basically I'll use like a lavash wrap for the crust, so it's high protein, lower calorie, and then you just put on your sauce or cheese, shit ton of protein, veggies, whatever you want to put on top. But I'll prep like I'll chop veggies during my meal prep, or I'll cook whatever protein I want. Usually I do ground beef, so that's already prepped and ready to go. And whenever I want to make it at night, I'll literally just throw it all together, put it in the oven for a few minutes until it's like warm, done. Super easy. Burrito bowls, burger bowls, those are my go-to staples. I've done those for years and years, and they're so simple to put together, and a lot of different combinations too. Same with stir fry. I've also been on a big taco kick. I've been eating the same fish tacos for at least 6 months every single day. because
Nothing,
they're
nothing wrong with Taco Tuesday every day, right?
right. Yeah, they're so good. It's so easy to put together. All I do is prep basically the fish for it and then again chop the veggies and everything and then throw them all together. So simple, so easy, and takes literally no time to meal prep. Chili, like you said, really good one. Even like a protein pasta, super simple. So like those are all staples that I run through. Like I'll cycle through them as I get sick of each one, and so easy to make. We also have a full recipe book with all my favorite simple recipes that you can try. So I'll put that link in the notes to download it for free if you guys want some more inspiration as well. But in order to make like what I do to make it so quick is just using different methods of cooking usually. So I'll throw stuff in the oven, for example, like the fish for the fish tacos, I just throw that in the oven and then I'm cooking my other stuff while that's baking. You can use a crock pot too, air fryer, rice cooker, like get all the things going at once so that way everything's basically done at the same time and it makes it super simple and straightforward. Or even doing like a sheet pan meal where you just throw everything in the oven takes basically like 5 minutes of prep time and then that's it. Same with crock pot. Literally throw everything in a crock pot and then go to work, do whatever else you need to do, and then your meals are done. So there's a lot of great shortcuts like that that make things super fast and efficient when you're meal prepping. So it doesn't need to be a whole day event. And same with like pre-washed veggies, pre-cut stuff, rotisserie chicken too. If you really don't have time to like go and prep chicken yourself, microwavable rice. Like obviously some of those may not be optimal, but they're a lot better than going and grabbing fast food if you need to save some time. So those are always great options too.
Yeah, and another when we're talking about planning it out, if you know what your week's going to look like, there might be a day where like, oh, this day really needs to be like a crock pot meal day,
Mm.
and there's other days where like, oh, you know what, I can spend a little bit more time preparing it for this day or whatever. So again, why planning is so important. Look ahead. It helps you to have more options. And, one thing, I don't know if it's as common now, but I feel like at one time a lot of clients would ask, like, why don't we set meal plans? Like, what? Just tell me. I've gotten this before. Just tell me what to eat and I'll eat it. And it sounds like a great idea, especially if someone's just starting. They're like, I don't know what to do. It's all overwhelming. Just tell me what to eat and I'll eat it. But there's a couple reasons why we don't like to do that. One, it lacks flexibility. So if I tell a client you have to eat this, and something happens, whether they're on vacation or they're busy that day or something pops up, whatever it may be, all of a sudden they're like, well, what do I make? you know, Same foods. If you have the same foods over and over again, some people like I can eat the same lunch every day. I could have the fish tacos every day. I'm fine with that. But some people don't like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people like that variety, and if you give them 2 or 3 meals to do, and they're only using those 2 or 3 meals, they're going to start breaking down. They're going to get bored with it, and they're going to probably start adding things because we're not teaching them how to eat the correct meals. They're just going to start grabbing things, right? And it's not sustainable. Even if someone's like, I will eat the same thing, I don't care. Eventually, they're not going to want to, and it's just it's a short term fix.
Yeah, and part of it too is about learning these habits and tools for yourself. Like we don't just like when you're in school or learning something, you don't want someone to do it for you. You need to actually go and apply it yourself to learn the tools and build the sustainability and the consistency going forward. So part of that is too, and also different foods work for different people. So we're not going to say like, hey, you need to eat these things. We want to find something that's going to work with your life and your lifestyle and your preferences to make sure that you have a plan that's going to work long term.
Yeah, I could easily come up with a meal plan that's fantastic for me, and someone could completely not like anything on there.
Exactly.
Another thing we can talk about is using delivery services. If you not like me and you don't like going to the grocery store, or if like you're like I do, it's just life's hectic. I got a lot going on. Then there are delivery services, or I know a lot of people, even if they don't use a delivery, they love the curbside pickup. That's been an option for a lot of stores now, and it does make life a lot easier. And then I was thinking too, even if you do love shopping, so if you have young kids, sometimes that's very difficult to shop, and that makes life a lot easier, and it saves a lot of time, and it maybe takes some stress out as well.
Yeah, I refuse to go to the grocery store and stop shop now. Like I will only do curbside. I
Oh,
refuse
really?
to.
You're opposite of me.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
Just because it's such like if I had more time to do it, then it may be different. But I do not have the extra time to go and shop and like walk through. So I'd rather just go grab it, come back, and make it
Yeah.
more efficient. I think another benefit to that too, though, is you're less tempted with cravings because a lot of times, especially if you go in hungry grocery shopping, you're gonna be like, "Ooh, like that looks good," and you're gonna kind of deviate. Even if you have a plan, you may be tempted to deviate from the plan. But it's so much easier too when you're ordering online. You know, like you check all the boxes, you know what you need to get, hit order, and then you're not tempted by other stuff. You just grab it and go.
Yeah, I totally get that. I like to go. So like when I go, like I'll go usually like on a Saturday morning, like right when like I'll go to like Publix or something. It opens up at like 7 a.m. and I'm like the first guy walking in. I've literally been there like waiting on them, and I walk in, and almost every time they ask me if I'm buying for somebody, and
Oh,
I guess just because I have everything organized, like in certain sections and stuff like that. But yeah, like I like going in and like I have a special technique for picking out avocados and things like that. So like I really get into it. So, but I do understand. And there's probably way more reasons to do like curbside pickup, than just go shopping for yourself though.
I
So
mean, it's whatever works best for each individual person. I think it's just
exactly.
funny, like like we're a great example of that. Like that works really well for you, and curbside works really well for me. So there's nothing wrong with that. And it sounds like you're quite the pro at grocery shopping.
I don't know if I'm a pro. I feel like I am, but I'm probably not. But it's I have fun doing it, so
What
I
are some
pretend
of
I am.
your favorite hacks that you go? Like you said, the avocado stuff. Like, are there any like main things that are been really beneficial, or just little hacks that you like to use when you're there?
Well, so like the main thing probably is like for fruit, because I feel like that's like where like if you curbside pick it up or have someone else pick it up, they're just randomly grabbing stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I'll tell you my little trick with avocados, all right? So I'll tell you a couple tricks with avocados. So one, I try to get ones that have a big like ridge bump in it.
Mm.
They look ugly, and you're like, this thing's stupid, but they're the best. I don't know what the reason is, but they usually end up having the smallest seed, which means you have the most avocado in it,
Mm.
and they taste better. I don't know why, but anyway, so I'll try to make sure they're a little unripe, and that way they're a little hard. And so when I take them home, I'll leave them out, and then every morning I wake up, I test them, and if they're just a little bit soft, I'll put them in the fridge and they last like whenever I need them. So like some people complain that there's funny memes out there. It was like I bought the avocado 2 hours later like complete trash or whatever. But this method actually helps them keep for a while. So yeah, I always try to find one that's a little bumpy that has like a ridge bump on it. It looks awful, but they're the best. They're the
I
best.
like it. All right, good to
And then
know.
just like looking at different fruits, like pineapples. I try to find one that's not too ripe, not too unripe, or I like a lot of berries, so blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. Like I want to open them up and look at them, make sure that they look solid and juicy. And apples, I don't know. Just I think the fruit for me is the main thing where I like to take my time and just make sure I'm grabbing the best quality as possible.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the one downside of curbside pickup is I don't get fresh fruit. I usually just get frozen stuff because they've always given me like rotten stuff. And even when I go in, I feel like the quality here in Florida of fresh produce is not good. So I've just kind of given up on that.
Another thing, and this is something I do that I really love, and actually, it's actually my girls that came up with this idea. Is we use themes for our meals, and I think it's a good idea just to kind of make variety one, but also the girls know what to expect for that day, and they're pickier than I am, and so they get excited if they know, like for example, on Monday it's like Italian Monday, Tuesday is Taco Tuesday. Wednesday we'll do breakfast. Thursday is usually kind of up for grab. Friday we'll do like pizza or something like that. So it makes it easier because then I know exactly what we're having, so I can prep easily for that. I can shop easily for that, and then the girl just I get away from that. What do you want tonight? What can you have, or that type of battle type of thing. And so it just makes it a lot easier. So we have fun with the theme days.
Yeah, that's super fun.
Taco Tuesday being everyone's favorite, of course.
Of course, of course.
And then also, if I always used to love leftovers as a kid. But you cook it once, you can eat multiple times. And so again, you're saving time. So focus on meals that reheat well. Obviously, there's some foods you reheat and you're like, that just wasn't great. And they taste just as good on day one as they would day three. We talked about like chili. There's some things like chili where it actually tastes better, I think, in my opinion. If after a couple of days that it's been sitting there. So I think those are some good tips for that.
Yeah, and when you're planning out your meals too, you just generally want to have the structure of making sure we're including a really big protein source, making that
Yeah.
the big star of the meal and going usually doubling if you're following a recipe, like double whatever the protein is in there to make sure that you're getting enough. And then of course a carb source, some healthy fats in each meal. And the great thing about some of these staple meals, just like with the structure there, and some of the ones that I mentioned earlier, even like the burrito bowl, the burger bowl, stir fry, it's really easy to create a lot of variety by just swapping out one ingredient or the seasonings just to change up the flavor and give yourself more variety. Like even with the burger bowls or burrito bowls, like just changing the type of meat that you're using or the veggies that you're using or the sauces, like all that kind of stuff. There's so much variability if you're one of those people that needs to switch things up more frequently. Again, for me, I can eat the same thing literally every day for months and months and months. And
Same.
sometimes I'll get sick of it and I'll make one of those small swaps and I'll just do the same thing over and over. I'm just one of those people. I eat more for fuel and just to be efficient, but I know that that isn't the case for everyone. So there is a lot of ways that you can create variety. It's super, super simply, and it doesn't add more time. It doesn't add more decision fatigue. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And like you said, sometimes just minor things, swaps or just you add something, you have let's say you have a salad or something, and maybe one day you're adding flax seeds or, you add chia seeds or you mix up the dressing or something, or like you said, sauces. So I think that's a great way of making it a little bit different, but sticking with the basis. Like you said, want to get a lot of protein in and building it around the protein, but not having the same exact meal every single time.
Yeah, like easy to swap the protein sources, swap out like rice for the carbs or potatoes or different types of potatoes, like sweet potatoes versus regular,
Hmm.
or like rice noodles. Like there's so much variety, or even just the seasonings that you use can completely change the flavor profile too.
Yes.
And then you can also prep snacks as well. It's great to prep your grab and go snacks, even just boiled eggs or oatmeal, protein cookies, Greek yogurt, pre-cut veggies, like fruit, all that kind of stuff is it's easy to just prep that so that way you can grab and go and you don't have to worry about that when you have a busy week ahead of you as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of times I think that's where, some people get kind of locked in on their meals and they're like their general meals and I feel pretty good about this, but the snacks is what's really gets them. And a lot of times it's because they grab whatever's convenient or what's around them or what someone else has placed out for them in a break room or something like that.
Hmm. And I'm a huge fan of I do all my meals at once, so that way, again, I have very limited time, so I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to throw stuff together. I don't want to have to cook it all during the week. I'm just eating like any minute I can. But if you have more time or you want more variety with your meal prep, you can also break it out into steps, like cooking your proteins, roasting some veggies, or portion out your carbs separately. So that way, they're all separate, but they're ready to go, and you can mix and match meals and throw stuff together how you see fit during the week and give yourself more variety day to day instead of each eating the same thing again and again.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people will hear this and like, oh man, like this sounds amazing, but sometimes I get just really busy and like they sometimes they think if it's a frozen meal or something that it's not as good or the quality isn't great or something like that. But sometimes you can have some, life happens, right? There's a lot of things going on, whether it's planned or not, right? And so having a backup meal that you can cook really quickly, and there's actually some really good ones out there. Gosh, I found one at Costco the other day. It's like Pura Vida, or I don't know if that's the brand name, something like that. Anyway, it had like different potatoes and they had a vegetable one, and it was just really easy mixture and variety of stuff that you could just heat up really quickly. But yeah, like Trader Joe's, Costco, I mean, pretty much anywhere nowadays, you can find some really good high quality frozen meals. And again, you want to look for something that has high protein, right? And limits the kind of the seed oils, stuff like that. But ultimately, if you're in a rush or you're super busy, you just want to find something that's going to have a lot of protein and it's going to taste good and you're going to enjoy it and no guilt to it.
Love me some Trader Joe's. They have such good stuff there, and I always have a lot of their frozen like snacks and meals just in my freezer just for that reason. Usually on the weekends when I have a little less structure, so that way if I'm in a pinch, there's easy something to throw together. And then I also will when I do my meal prep, I'll usually cook a little bit extra, like ground beef and fish are like my main protein sources that I've been using. So I'll cook extra of that and just have them in the freezer. So that way, if I am in a pinch or on the weekend or something, like I don't have a meal planned, I can easily pull that out, heat it up, and like throw something together super quick. So I always have that stuff in my freezer on deck just for whatever reason if something falls apart or it doesn't go to plan.
Yeah, again, having a plan, right? So like having, and I say have a plan, having a backup plan, right? In case the
Yes.
plan that you had doesn't like really work out, whatever. But like you've said, you've got to figure out what's going to work best for you. And then what about because you're a big meal prepper, so tell us what kind of what kind of containers do you need to do this?
Oh yeah. I it's funny. These are the things I get excited about now as an adult is glass meal prep containers. For the longest time, I was using just the plastic ones, which are not great for your health, obviously, because a lot of stuff will seep into your food. So glass all the way. It's been so huge. So yeah, I was very excited about that. Just making sure that they're microwave safe, dishwasher safe, all that stuff. And one thing you mentioned too, refining as you go. I want to touch on that a little bit more too because it is super important. I've been doing this for years and years, so I am a well-oiled machine. It's like that's why I can get it done in an hour. I know exactly what to do, exactly what to switch out. And it may just take a few weeks of figuring things out. Like you got to find what meals you really, really enjoy, what types of ingredients, what's the most efficient way to prep stuff for you and your lifestyle, how to organize it with the family, how to structure it, how to plan that stuff out. So give yourself a little bit of grace. It's not going to be perfect the first time around, and you're going to have to refine a little bit as you go. But the more you do it, the more fluid it's going to become, and it's going to become second nature and so automatic. You're going to know exactly what to look for, exactly how to prep, and exactly what you need in each meal to hit your targets, whether you're tracking your macros or not. So give yourself some time to adjust, but just make sure that you're continue to show up and do that because you will be able to get into a good flow the more you do it.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people this. I tried meal prepping, once or twice. It, just didn't work out. And like you said, a lot of it's like with a lot of things. Sometimes it just you kind of got to get in that flow, and it takes a few times to get the hang of it. And then once you start doing it, you're like, oh, this is nothing. This is easy. I've got this type of thing.
Yeah, and going along with the planning too, I love pre-planning my meals in my Fitness Pal. If you're one of the people that are tracking your food, plan that ahead of time before you go to the grocery store, before you go and buy your food. So that way, and before you prep especially, so that way you know exactly how much you need to make to hit your targets, as opposed to going and putting it in after and be like, oh, I'm low on protein or oh, I'm way over on calories. When you plan it ahead of time and you know exactly what you're going to make, it's so much easier to go and translate that into your actual meal prep. And then you know that you're hitting your targets exactly for the week. So it makes it so simple and straightforward and a lot easier to track too, because you can literally just copy and paste everything in my Fitness Pal.
Yeah, and it's really difficult, I feel like, to catch up on protein in particular.
Hmm.
You get to the end of the day, you're like, oh man, I need another 60 grams of protein. Sometimes that can be difficult. We have ways of getting to that, but sometimes, not everyone wants to do it the way we do it, right? So it's like, yeah, if you have 60, 70 grams, you're probably not going to hit your protein target that day.
Yeah, got to make sure that that's on lock for sure. And the best way to do that is planning ahead of time. I had one of my clients who we just got into meal prep too, and he's kind of going through this process of refining. Like he made a stir fry first, he liked it, but he's like, all right, I want to switch up the sauce a little bit. I realized I didn't have enough protein, so now he doubled up the protein, tried a different protein source, a different sauce, and now he's getting dialed in, and so getting into a really good flow with that. So it's cool to see it actually getting applied in real life.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find fun and enjoyable about cooking is like, so I love baking things, but I'm not very good at it because I hate following directions. And so like I
Same.
feel like, like if I bake something and I try to, play around with it, it does not work out the way I hope, right? But I feel like when you're cooking food, you can play around with it. You don't have to measure things. It's more fun. You can just put more into it. And like you said, you can play around with things. You can add different sauces, different meats, change up, whatever it may be. And so that's one reason I enjoy doing it as well.
That's funny you say that. I'm the exact same way. For whatever reason, I hate following recipes. Like if I have to, I will. But especially when there are a million steps, it just is not my thing. Maybe if I had more time to like really get into cooking and being all like a chef type of vibe, but no, I always just eyeball my stuff. All the sauces and things I eyeball. Obviously, I'll go in and track it after the fact, but I just throw things together. And the more you do it, the more you refine what works for you and what you like. And you get to the point where you can just throw together stuff without even thinking about it and without following a recipe.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a control issue or what or something deep down that like I don't want to follow the recipe, but yeah, I don't actually I don't enjoy it at all. Like if you gave me a recipe, I would do something different to it. I would either add something, switch something out, or I would just be like, okay, it says tablespoon. This looks like about a tablespoon. I don't enjoy following. Now, what I do like doing, I do like to look at a recipe and get a good idea, and then, like I said, I'll modify it to make it Laurence type of thing.
Totally with you on that, 100%. So, aside from your theme days, how else do you structure your meals, your meal prep, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I do things a little bit differently. So I kind of like a meal prep like daily, and what I mean by it is I know like what meals I've already planned everything out for the week, and so when I go to the grocery store, I already have everything written out. I know exactly like what kind of ingredients I want to buy, what kind of staples. That's one thing too, is I always have a large group of staples that I buy every time. Like avocados would be part of that, ground beef or a lot of fruits, things like that. A lot of yogurt, a lot of cottage cheese. So I have things that I'm going to buy no matter what. And I don't even have to write it down. I know I have a routine in the grocery store. I go up and down certain aisles, certain way, and I grab all those staples. And then what I like to do is and mentally I know what I'm going to prepare. And so I like to cook. Like I like to come home and I like to make it, even if I'm in a rush. I'd prefer to throw something together. So my meal prep is having all of the ingredients ready to go, and I know exactly what I'm going to do. And there are times where I'll make it the night before. Depends on what the situation is. But a lot of times it's the day of, and for me, it doesn't take much time because I know exactly what I'm doing. And the theme nights help out a lot too. Because like the Taco Tuesdays is going to be pretty, simple every single time, but very consistent. But sometimes we'll mix it up. Maybe I'll add rice one time or add, peppers or something different. But it makes life a lot easier. So it's a different version of that meal prep.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing too, kind of going off of that, if there's people out there that like to prep every week or every day and have a meal, a fresh meal, like when you're making dinner, make extra for your lunch the next day. Super easy. It takes no extra time, and you have something prepped for the next day, and you can kind of repeat that process if you like having it more fresh.
Yeah, I love that too. Like I'll make tons of beef and the next day you're like, oh yeah, I already have lunch made, type of thing. And so yeah, it does make it a lot easier just to add way more than you're going to eat that night before, and then use it for breakfast is a great idea too. You make up chicken or beef or something, and then you wake up in the morning, throw some eggs on some beef, and boom, you got yourself a high protein meal, and you're ready to rock and roll for the next day. And it took you probably like 5 minutes.
Yeah, such a good point, especially because breakfast I feel like tends to be the lowest protein, like the
Mm.
less planning and structure that goes into it because you're waking up, you're on the go, rushing to work, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, and that you're right. Yeah, breakfast tends to be one of those meals that a lot of people don't eat a whole lot of protein. So if you already have it pre-made, it's in your fridge. So, one of the things we talk about too is removing any kind of barriers, right, from reaching your goal. And that's just one less thing you have to worry about. You go in the fridge, there's my meat, boom, you're ready to go.
Hmm. Yeah, so there's lots of different ways to structure your meal prep. Again, you got to find what works best for you, but I think overall it is essential in some capacity. And for numerous reasons. One, saves you a ton of time. Like you're setting aside an hour or two to prep for the week, but that saves you time throughout the rest of the week with making decisions, having to go and grab stuff midday, making bad decisions. So saving you a lot of time during the week. Also saves a lot of money. I've had clients saving hundreds a month just from doing meal prep.
Yeah, and that's a huge win that I think a lot of people don't think about or talk about.
Yeah. Also, again, that decision fatigue. When you don't have something planned, you're spending that time and that energy thinking about, okay, what am I going to eat? What am I going to go grab? I want to make a healthy decision. And also, you're a lot more tempted to go and grab unhealthy stuff or fast food out of convenience or just stuff that you're craving in the minute because you're so hungry and you didn't have something planned. So it's a lot easier just to go and gravitate towards whatever the hell is out there as opposed to sticking to your planned meal just because either you put it off or you just don't have a set plan in place. And then it also helps you know exactly what's in your food and that it's helping you reach your goals, especially when you pre plan it and you're tracking all of it. You know that you're getting closer to your goals. Whereas if you're eating out, yeah, you can make good decisions, but ultimately you don't know what all is in your food and the quantities and everything. So it really just helps make sure that you are locked in and on track. And overall, just makes your week so much easier. You don't have to think about it. Everything is planned, especially if you're working in an office or something. You just go grab your meal, heat it up. Time, energy, money is all saved.
Yeah, and what do people complain about? They're like, I want more money, I want more time, right? I want life to be easier, and I want less stress. And so again, like I think from the outside viewpoint, we look at some people look at meal prep and they're like, oh wow, that's overwhelming. There's a lot that goes involved with it. But when you actually get into it and start making, doing that consistently, all those things that we just mentioned is just such a big win for everyone down the road.
Yeah, it's essential.
All right, so navigating the grocery store, right? So the foundation is going to be for meal prep is going to be grocery shopping. So if I loved what you were saying earlier about if you do like curbside or Instacart or something like that, you have that list. So when you're going through it, checking off everything, and that was a great point about the MyFitnessPal, putting it all in there. And so ahead of time exactly, what your macros are going to be. You put that on that sheet and they'll get everything for you. But if you're going on your own, I think it's good to kind of talk about like how to navigate that grocery store because it can be overwhelming. You go in, there's a lot of aisles and there's a lot of marketing, right? And it sells because they sucker me all the time, right? I'm like, oh man, that looks good. Like, how does that look good? It's just, it's just colorful or whatever. But one thing I like to do is like I'll have my staples that we talked about there earlier, and so I make sure that I always get those, and those are always just like my foundation, right? So I'll have like my meats, my fruits, vegetables, and then other high protein sources are kind of like what I base everything around, and those are typically found on the outside of the grocery store. So if I walk in, I'll kind of tell you I'll do give a quick rundown of what I like to do. All right, so I do like some energy drinks. So the first thing I do is I run down the aisle, see if any are on sale. All right, and then I go to what I call the Taco Tuesday aisle, which is not, but and I make sure that I have some refried beans. Make sure that we have taco shells and everything that we need for that, and then I'll go to like coffee. Make sure I grab coffee, and then I go down. Then everything else is on the outside. So I'm gonna go through the vegetables, or I go vegetables, fresh foods. And that's a huge section. And then I basically stay on that outside where I go through the meats, I go through a frozen section, the dairy, grab whole milk, and then grab my cottage cheese and yogurts and eggs, and then I'm done. And if I kind of stick to that routine specifically on the outside, the majority of those options are way better than if I'm looking at those end caps on the outside where they're trying to push something or trying to sell something. Or I go down those aisles where it's just a bunch of things that just I don't need for my day. And those are the things that, are high sugar, high calories, and extremely tempting, which is one reason why I don't go down there because, I'm like anyone else. That stuff tempts me as well. And I'll look at that and I'm like, man, that sounds like really good, right down. And anytime I go down the baking aisle, I pass those muffins. I'm like, oh, it'd be good, a blueberry muffin or something. So I have to talk myself out of it. But yeah, so having the staples and having that plan going into your grocery store trip and staying on the outside for the most part is going to be huge in terms of staying with your goals and staying with your plan.
Yeah, make your list going into it. Write down everything you need before you go. Even separate your list in sections: produce, protein, pantry, staples, all that kind of stuff. Like you said, stick to the perimeter. All the healthiest foods are usually going to be in the outside: the produce, the proteins, the dairy, all that stuff. And try to avoid the processed food trap that's in the middle aisles where you'll find all that kind of high calorie, low nutrient type of foods. Um, and yeah, the marketing especially.
Yeah, the marketing is fantastic, right? You said avoid those impulse buys. You're going to save money, one, but you end up just buying stuff that you just don't really need. And so speaking of marketing, you need to check those labels. Like even now, sometimes I'll buy something like, oh, this looks great, and I'll be home looking at it, I'm like, oh man, I didn't even look at this. Like what else is in there? Because sometimes there are items that you think are super simple, like there's no way anything is added to this. And you look at it and there's like sugar added to it. And like, why? Why is there sugar in this? Or a lot of unnecessary oils or things like that. So you want to make sure you check those nutrition labels. Just make sure there's not just extra added sugars to it or unhealthy fats, unhealthy oils, or just unnecessary ingredients. If you grab something that's just got a laundry list of ingredients, then it probably does have like a lot of additives and fillers, and it's just not going to be great for you. And then another thing is look at that, like protein to calorie ratio. You want to make sure it has a lot of calories. No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. We want to make sure that it has a lot of protein, right? And so one way to look at it is like 10 grams per like 100 calories minimum. But usually, and you have to be careful of that too, right? Because there's a lot of foods out there that'll say high protein and it's like 5 grams.
Not high protein at all.
Yeah, like, it's just like chips. They had 2 grams of protein or something. Now they're like, oh, we got high protein chips. So, um, and then look for sales. Talking about saving up, saving money. Look for sales on lean meats. You can stock up, and that's super easy to freeze. So if there's a good deal, I'll buy a bunch of that. Frozen chicken breast. Buy in bulk if you can. We've talked about places like Costco. One thing you have to be careful. You go to Costco and you want to buy everything, and all of a sudden you have gallons and pounds of everything. But if you do it right, and then it is a good way to buy in bulk. You don't waste time. So, and then you mentioned this earlier. Don't shop hungry. Don't go in there when you're starving or craving something.
Yeah, going back to the marketing too, is they get you, especially when you're trying to find healthy options. There's a lot of stuff that's marketed as healthy or high protein or low fat, low sugar, all the things. But actually look at the ingredients, look what's in it, because usually it's all bullshit and there's a lot of it's actually not what they're advertising. So just kind of be mindful of that stuff too, especially when you're looking for the healthier options.
Well, yeah, and sometimes they'll switch things out, right? They'll have a sign that says no or low fat or no fat, and what they do is they add a bunch of sugar to it, right?
Yeah.
So or they'll say no sugar, but then they add tons of fat, because they're doing whatever they can to, whatever craze it is lately or something like that. They want, like you said, market it to you and your needs and desires, and then they'll just switch things around to still make sure that it tastes good, and it's cheaper for them.
Yeah, just because it's marketed as keto or low carb or again, any of the terms out there, don't just rely on that. Actually go and do your research, especially if you can't pronounce a lot of the ingredients. It's best to just avoid it.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally best just to avoid that and find something more fresh, right? Like strawberries, I can pronounce that. Boom. Blueberries, I got it.
Beef, steak, easy.
Beef, good. All right. That's a Friends reference, by the way. A little Joey action for the Friends fans out there.
Went right over my head for sure.
I know you would. I was gonna go into it, but people, if you know, you know, right? Type of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so let's summarize this up. So meal prep, grocery shopping, it can seem overwhelming. It can seem like it's a hassle at first. But once you kind of build that habit, like a lot of things we've talked about, it kind of just becomes second nature. And it really is. It can be, I should say, one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to help you really stay consistent, save time, and helps you see that real progress. So remember, we're always about progress and not being perfect, right? So it's about creating that plan that works for you, and then being able to stick to that. So plan it out, schedule it, take a few minutes to do that weekly. Make sure you have your staples, lean in on these. Simple recipes, build your meals around the protein, and then refine as you go. Kind of have fun with it and play around with it and figure out what works really best for you.
Yeah. If meal prepping or grocery shopping has been a struggle for you, we got you covered as well. In our free community, we have full guides that include a breakdown on how to set nutrition targets, what to buy, and recipes to get you started. Like I said, we have all that stuff broken down. All of my go-to favorite simple recipes are in there. So I'll put that link to join for free in the notes as well. And thanks for tuning in today. If you found this episode helpful, feel free to share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And we will see you guys next week.